So, Susan, if Heather and Kate don't appear, you will be the third voter.
Okay.
Dwayne Bolt.
Here, not voting.
Okay. Robin Sue
Here, I am voting.
and Marie.
Here, but not voting.
Lily.
Let me have Marie vote because Lily's not here. So take Lily off the list and put Marie on.
Okay, and then Christy, are you voting?
I'm voting.
John Bench,
Here, voting.
Susan Allen, not here. John Eisenhower.
Here, not voting unless I need to.
Okay, Ingrid voting. Jim Sawyer. I don't see him. Heidi Lawson. No Heidi. Jessica Stewart.
Here, and I'm voting, I think, because I think it's just Carrie and I.
Okay, no Jessica Bass. And Carrie.
I'm here.
You're here voting. And no Roger. Right, okay. All right, so the, I don't know that we've seen a voucher recently, but it'll go around when it needs to be signed. The next order of business is approval of the minutes from January 21st. If I could get a motion from someone.
So moved. This is Jessica.
On the right.
Thank you. Second,
Second, Heather.
Heather. Oh, Heather, you're here. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry about
Nope. So are you voting, Heather?
I am voting.
Okay. So any discussion? All right, I will go through the list of voters to approve the minutes. Heather.
Approved.
Todd.
Approved.
Teresa.
Approve.
Robin Sue.
Approve.
Marie.
Approve.
Christy.
Approve.
John Bench.
Approve.
Ingrid. Approve. Jessica Stewart.
Approve.
And Carrie.
Approve.
Okay, approval of minutes has passed. Before we get started on this meeting, I just wanted to reach out to the Sumner community as and let them know that they're in our thoughts as they're dealing with the tragedy that took place this weekend. So they're in our thoughts. Is there any public comment, Mark or Matt?
There was not any received prior to the opening of the meeting, Ingrid.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go right on to reports and updates. Matt's principal's report.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here tonight. And Ingrid, I do appreciate you saying that about what happened at Sumner. It's just when tragic events like that happen to our neighboring schools, it really brings home how important the students are to us and how hard it can be on a community when something like that happens. So thanks for bringing that up and acknowledging that. Moving on from there, I don't have a lot of things to share in my principal's report today, other than the typical comings and goings of students that Mary Wallace and Mary Cora do a nice job of keeping updated in there. A couple of student updates. We do have a couple of students who have been recognized for their work, for their artwork, Hayden Braun and Austria Morehouse. So they've done well. The anti-racism task force has been doing bi-weekly meetings. That's been coming along and lots of relationships and kind of forward momentum are being forged there. As another piece of the work, the anti-racist work beyond the task force, there's a couple of different collaboratories happening that being co-chaired. One of them, the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Collaboratory, Julie Kublinski is co-chairing that, and I'm co-chairing the Restorative Practices Collaboratory, which is looking at ways to engage students who have made different decisions or would typically fall under disciplinary protocols to rather than punish, more repair the harm and reduce the likelihood of repeat occurrences. So that's going to get underway. The first meeting of that group is tomorrow. So we'll have some more forward motion on that. A couple things on staffing. We have a new ed tech on board, Christian Bro. He started the first day of the second semester. He's a recent graduate of the University of Maine, and he's working in the SUN program. He's also a graduate of their music program. He's a certified music teacher, so it's nice to add somebody like that to our team. And we will begin the process of advertising for an English teacher. As you remember, Wilt Jones retired back in the fall, and Keith Eaton switched from English over to social studies to cover him, to make that change in his career. And we're now, the second semester, Becky Lehman is covering the classes that Keith would have been teaching. And we want her to go back next year to her role of instructional coach and writing center teacher. So we will be looking for a new English teacher. We'll start that process here right after break. And I just left that piece in there that I talked about last time from the superintendent out in New York State, talking just about resisting the pressure from the powers that be that are in a hurry to fix kids and make up for lost time, because it's more about the soft skills than the content right now. And I would, if you didn't have a chance to read that whole article, it's only, I don't know, a page and a half. It's just a blog post. It's worth checking out when you get a chance. As far as facilities, we've had another meeting of the trustees, and we are working on pulling together our subgroups that are working on the library and the science renovation. And Carrie is a member of both groups, and she's kind of taken the lead on pulling those groups together, and she's getting another meeting of the science subcommittee shortly. So I appreciate the help with that. Basically, that's all that would be kind of new in the principal's report, and I'd take any questions on anything in there.
Any questions for Matt? Christy?
I just have two quick questions. Back about your laboratories, is that teachers or students and teachers, or who's in the collaboratories?
So collaboratories are just educators. It's teachers and ed techs. It's not, there are no students involved in those collaboratories.
My other question is just a quick one. I had a member of the community, the head of the climate task force here in Bar Harbor, who wanted to ask me some questions about the solar panels, and maybe he already called you. And I just had a question. Who was that? A trustees project? The decisions, or is that you? Like, who's the person best to talk to about that process of how you decided, or is it the board? And I'm asking a really dumb question because I was a part of it. But I didn't think it was us. And so I just wasn't really sure who made those decisions and who best to direct that person to. Which
Ultimately,
I directed them to you, actually. So.
Well, that's the best place to start, is with me. That was a trustee's decision to approve that project. So the person here would be me, the person at the high school. I would have probably the most comprehensive knowledge of how that came together. Also, A Climate to Thrive really took the lead in a lot of the logistics around that process. So that was Joe Blotnick. Was there the person who did it now. He was heading up that work back then. I think he's taken more of an advisory role now, and it's Lawson Wilson who's kind of in the lead there. Lawson is also one of our trustees, so that's very exciting as we start to work on different projects. But is it from the town council task force? Is that what you were? Yeah, I think I would be a good first contact for that person, and then we can fill in the gaps from there.
Thank you.
Other questions for Matt regarding his principal's report? Okay, seeing none, we'll segue into the academic update.
Over the course of the first semester, I think at each of the meetings, we've talked about how the students are doing during this pandemic. What are the things that are concerning us? What's the level of engagement? And ultimately, how successful are our students in the classroom? If you're able to pull up the link that I put on the agenda, I've answered some of those questions here, and I'd like to talk about some of the data, and then just some of the other pieces that are related. So if you start to look at, there's a couple of charts in there. You can look at the number of students who failed a class. And I know some of the stories we've heard statewide and nationally and regionally, the numbers were more like 25, a quarter to a third of the students were failing classes. We didn't wind up in that situation. And I think you'll see, looking at that, overall across the school, about 13% of our students failed one class, which is pretty dead on typical for what we would have in a normal school year. It kind of varies. It was about the same number were hybrid versus the same number who were remote. Although the percentages of it was about the same number, absolutely. So if you were remote, you were a little bit more likely to fail a class if you were fully remote. The freshmen in particular did pretty well with passing their classes this time. So that's a good, one of the most striking indicators of a student who's at risk of dropping out is failing classes in your freshman year, at least as far as at the high school goes. It can go back quite a bit further than that. But if you start failing classes, especially math, English, social studies, and science, if you start failing those classes as a freshman, it puts you in a hole that's very hard to get out of. One of the things that we had to do this year based on adjusting for the pandemic was to move away from our Island Pathways alternative program that was for freshmen and sophomores. And that helped students who were particularly in need of engagement. And we had to step away from that this year. And I think while the numbers of the percentage of students who failed classes was fairly low with the freshmen, actually lower than typical. Looking at some of the individuals who fell into that category, I think a number of those individuals would have been served well in an Island Pathways type of setting. And so the good news on that is we are fully intending to go back to being able to offer that next year. So that will be good for that. If you look at the percentage of students in graduation jeopardy, and I did this totally in an objective measure, I looked at basically a number of credits that students would have right now. So if you look at a senior who has less than 20 credits, that means they have to pass every class that they have at least every class that they have in the second semester or more. So that's 6%. That's a fairly low number at this point in the year. That's relatively rather low, actually. And then it goes up with the sophomores and juniors. Basically, that's trying to look at having 3 credits per semester is the benchmark there. So again, those numbers are fairly typical, if anything, a little bit lower than what they would typically be right now. And so just if you would quickly get into the areas of challenge, math and English were the most difficult classes, and that's no surprise. They tend to be that. And so you can kind of see the breakdowns there. Some other factors about school beyond academic class course failure. What we see right now that's the most distressing is the fewer and or weaker ties to our school community. And those ties are particularly weak when we go into a remote learning phase, or when for some reason we're not in a situation where there are extra and co-curricular activities going on. Students will have, I will say our students are actually performing a great feat of resiliency, and they're hanging in there. And you can also see under the surface that they're needing more engagement. They're having a harder time making new friends, meeting new people, building new connections. Even the ones who are succeeding by the numbers are having a more difficult time, especially those new to our school or new to our community. So, we do have the guidance counselors and the social worker are engaged pretty heavily in helping students build those connections. Thankfully, we do have the new school psychologist. Stephanie Logue is the one who works with the high school. The existence of her position is helping us not only get in the testing that we need to do, and she's also been able to step in and help guide us through some of our more tricky situations. So that's really great to have her. Super important super important position. And I'm so thankful that even when we had to adjust our budgets last year, that position still maintained a priority for us. And we're hoping that continues. And so what have we been doing? We've been supporting students with that type of a thing. We've been really focusing on relationships and relationship building. Part of that is smaller class sizes. We had to do smaller class sizes to be able to fit in the classrooms, and also just so teachers could concentrate a little bit more. One thing that people did to make that happen is teachers stepped up and are actually teaching fuller course loads. For example, our learning area leaders are not taking their extra prep that they are entitled to through the contract. People are picking up new classes. People who were out of the classroom are back in it. Lots of people kicking in to keep those class sizes down and keep more offerings out there. Teachers are offering office hours, which is a great support for students who take advantage of that. The breakout group supports both academic and social. We do have both classes that are virtual only. We're piloting a biology class this spring that instead of, if you're a virtual only student, instead of just being with the rest of the kids who are hybrid, all the kids who are virtual biology, freshman biology this semester are in one section. And it's all virtual, so that's not, so we're trying that out with that group. There are also some classes that are only in person. Lots of support on Wednesdays. I think the biologically appropriate start time of 9 o'clock has been never more important than now, when people are already stressed and not at their best. I think that asking the teenagers to get up at, a lot of them were getting on the bus at or before 6 o'clock in the old schedule, and that just on top of everything else they're dealing with, I think we would see some dramatically worse scenarios, both academically and socially, if we were starting at the typical start time. And the remote only options are helping some kids cope. That's kind of a little bit. What do we hope to do in the future? I hope to maintain that start time. I hope to maintain the flexibility that we're putting out there on Wednesdays, and to modify that a little bit, but just to maintain a chance for people to do something a little different once a week, and to have catch up, office hours, student support and student extension time on Wednesdays, to retain those ability for students to work remotely. Often when I'll go through a piece like this, someone will ask the question, well, how can the board help? Well, I got ahead of that. I'm already asking, how can the board help? Continue to support us as we focus on the whole child. The whole child meaning, yes, the academic content is important. So is the passion for learning, the excitement, how to learn. One of the things that I think is important is and I'm reminding teachers of this periodically, that yes, the content is important. And the most important thing we can do is to teach the students to build a level of curiosity and passion for their discipline, teach them how to learn, and support them as they're going through it, and support them as people. Trying to cram in the content and cover a set amount of curriculum and material can have the opposite of the intended effect. So to support that as we support the whole child, what they learn, who they are, who they have relationships, and how they grow. That's the whole child. When people have questions and concerns, please direct them to us, so we can answer those questions really well. And I appreciate the opportunity to do that when someone calls, even if they're displeased or unhappy. I still want to hear that. I want to have that conversation. And I also, I'm happy to exchange emails, and I think I do a much better job of communicating with people when I'm able to speak verbally. So that's often what I'll do, is I'll say, hey, can I give you a call? That's some of the things I feel like I can be the most effective at. And we can all, that's almost true for everybody. And then the last thing, how can the board help? Continuing to support coordination of resources among the schools. I know that's been a priority that the board has had, both at the AOS level and at the high school. I'm just going to give a small example. One of the things that is important about that will take coordination is this whole idea of a 9 o'clock start time. That is something that we're able to do because of some really creative work, and it can be very confusing and complicated because the same buses do the same runs for both the elementary and the high school. We have to really adapt, and we have a pretty small window we can fit into because it's the same buses that are running at the same time. In order to have the later start time, we have to move our bus runs in between the elementary runs. So elementary goes first in the morning right now, we go second, then we send our kids home, and then the elementary. If it wasn't all the same set of buses, we could have a little bit more class time and still have that late start time. So just for example, supporting the good work that you have been supporting to get that broader picture of how we do things. Transportation is a very small example. And when I say these things, I'm not saying to complain about the elementary. The elementary principals and schools have been super flexible and understanding. And that's just keep continuing to support us as you have, as we try to work together and have creative solutions is excellent. So anyway, I said a lot of stuff there, and I'm sure people probably have some follow-up questions.
So questions from Matt. Marie.
Can you talk a little bit more about what you mean by what we hope to do in the future? What do you mean, this semester or?
No,
beyond?
I think beyond. What do we hope to do when we're able to come back to school in person, a little bit more, or a little bit less physically distanced. One of the biggest challenge with COVID protocols is not wearing a mask. It's not washing your hands. It's not staying home when you're sick. It's having to keep the distance, which lowers our ability it lowers our building density, which means we have to keep people home. So what happens what are the types of things we can keep once we're able to come back together? And the later start time and a flexible Wednesday schedule is something that we have found to be very, very effective in supporting students. And we know that there are things about the Wednesday as it's set up now that is a little uneven based on necessity during this pandemic, but we want to try to keep some flexibility out there. And we also want to be able to retain remote options for students who that works well for. And there's a lot of different ways that could look.
Do you have a follow-up, Marie?
Not until I hear more, I guess. No, I was just a little concerned about what you meant by flexibility on Wednesday, just because I don't know if you mean, I don't know what that means. And maybe you don't know what it means because it's just, you're just kind of brainstorming some options that you've seen successful, but there's a lot of flexibility on Wednesdays. That's one way to put it right now, I think, for a lot of kids, because they don't have any class at all. So I'm just trying to figure out what that means.
So yeah,
what are you getting at? Are we not going to have class? And when, I guess that's what I'm having a little I want to know a little bit more about what that means.
So it's kind of somewhere in between the two things you said. I do have some idea of what I'm getting at with that. It's not a complete total brainstorm, and it also was really, really preliminary. And what we would probably look at is a version of Wednesdays that still had the reduced. We wouldn't have a regular day of school on Wednesday, so that would be also balanced off by more consistent and structured plans for the students that day. It wouldn't just be a day off, and that's an important piece that is true in some classes now and is definitely not true in other classes now. There's plenty of classes who are having lots of work on Wednesdays right now, and plenty of classes who have no work on Wednesdays right now. And I think kind of coming to the middle would be an important piece to that.
So Matt and I have not talked about this, so I'm presuming that at some point there would be a group of you from within the school that would have some kind of proposal that you would then bring forward to have further discussions about, right? I mean, I'm guessing there would be some kind of presentation made to us that we would then be able to discuss and vet. Is that accurate?
Yes, and Mark was trying to jump in, I think.
Mark?
No, just to echo your comments, Ingrid, I think it's really important to, we're all coming from multiple meetings. There's a lot of moving parts, and I know Matt and his staff are working really hard. And I know there are a lot of moving parts. And so working with Matt and Julie Kablinski and Julie Meltzer, I think it's important to circle back and just make sure we're addressing everybody's questions. And I'm confident that following the February break, as we come into the spring, which we're all looking forward to, we can do that. Thank you.
And anything that we did we would coordinate with the K-8s. If I know they have the early release schedule going, and it's on a different day than Wednesday this year because of lots of moving parts. We will definitely coordinate that effort, however that looks in the long run.
Well, I think that, I think we as a board would want to have some kind of presentation of anything that looks different to what we all would consider being the norm prior to COVID, right? So prior to COVID, it was Monday through Friday, whatever the start time was, 8:05 or whatever to 2:15, 5 days a week. I think that we would want you to vet some kind of proposal that then came to us so that we could dive into it to see how we all felt. And, it might make sense to reach out to some board members who have kids at the high school to, as you're creating whatever this proposal might be, so that you get some input from other people. Todd had his hand up next. And then I saw you, Christy. You're after Todd.
Thanks, Ingrid. Matt, thanks for putting that together, especially these bullet points about thinking about the future. I think it's a really good time to bring that up. And obviously, it's going to be some good discussion points. So thanks for putting that together. It did bring up one of the number one questions I had was how were students doing, both academically, but mentally, because we're hearing about that. But the second question I had was about the start time. So that seems to be a popular question and a popular topic going forward. And so I guess my question to you or Mark is, how do we go about that? And what is the board's role in making that determination?
Ingrid, may I?
Yeah.
I mean, I'll answer it this way, Todd. I think that, I've been in many situations over the course of my career where the board can take action and make things official. But my observation has been your principals and your buildings have functioned very, very well during my tenure here. And administrators certainly have to be accountable to communities. They have to be accountable to their colleagues and boards. But over the course of my time here, the overarching theme has been the approval of the calendar. And within the calendar, that is I would say it's sacred to the board. The board approves the calendar, which really gives the blueprint, I think, for the entire year. And with that, I've been in places where the boards approve handbooks, or the board approves a schedule, or the board approves start times. That hasn't been the case here. And I think the reason it hasn't been the case here historically is because we've had these conversations, these presentations have been made, the boards have been made aware. And so I think this conversation that has been evolving here now is really important to make sure that presentation comes back and folks are comfortable, because I would say that if boards or communities aren't comfortable, that's when we're going to start to see the request to approve start times or end times. It's not to say we should not present that to the boards, but I like the opportunity to present the information with my colleagues, make sure the boards are comfortable, and then have administrators do what we're hired to do, and that is implement the policies and procedures as approved by the board. Does that answer?
No, that's good, because I mean, in my short time here, we've never talked about start times or end times or anything like that. So I wasn't sure how that would go and happen. And obviously it's an important topic. It's a topic nationally and a topic here. COVID was a perfect disruption to have this conversation, if you want to say that. But I think it's an important conversation that we need to look at sooner than later.
And I just would add two things, if I may, quickly. Matt alluded to earlier, and that is, never now more than ever do we need to work together in efficiency of resources. How we're structured, your principals are working very hard, the business office is working very hard, teachers are, but we can function much more efficiently if we do weave those pieces together, number one. And number two, the issue of start times, the research and data is very, very clear, and several school systems have done that. And I'm confident if Matt working with the elementary principals, and also we have to be mindful of the cascade effect to HCTC, but that can be navigated. And I've seen it happen with great success in other districts around us.
Christy, you're up next. And I see you, Jessica, you're up after her.
Yes, I just have a comment, and I think we're all tired of COVID, and we all want life the way we know it to come back. I feel it. I'm not a sports parent. I'm a music and theater parent, and my kids have lost all of that, and they still don't have it back, not even in a small way. And so, yes, I 100% get that angst that everybody's feeling. Like, I want my kid, and my kid doesn't go to school at the high school. I want her back at school. But I think it's unrealistic to think that we're coming back to school in the fall the way we left it. I don't even know 2 years ago. This vaccine is not even approved for teenagers. It's not, we are looking at the level 2 people maybe not getting vaccinated till September or October. So the idea that we're even looking at normal school, I think we have to just say it out loud. I mean, hopefully it's better. Hopefully we can put kids closer together and get more kids in a classroom, and we can make, like Marie was saying, make Wednesdays better. I think we can improve upon the things we change to make them better. And I just hope that's where the focus is. And the focus isn't so much to how do we get back to normal, because I think it's going to be frustrating to try to think we can go back to normal. It might be years before we go back to normal. So let's create like a new normal where our kids are excelling and achieving rather than trying to go back to the beginning, I guess is what I'm saying. And I wanted to. I hear you all. And I just, I feel like there's things that we're learning with the remote school that we could do better. And we're all learning on the fly. So obviously, everybody can do better. But I also feel like I have friends in Virginia that haven't seen a live student since last March. And so I'm so incredibly thankful that our kids are getting the amount of school they are getting, and they're getting to play basketball. And even though parents are complaining that I can't watch them, they're getting to play, and you're watching them on TV. And there's a lot of towns that don't have that at all. And so I don't know. I'm just saying, I hope we're grateful. We are grateful, Matt. But I think I just want to focus on this time on doing these things better. So then when we go into the fall and we're still hybrid or remote, we're all super proud of how great we're doing. Because I think we are doing great compared to a lot of places. So I'm off my soapbox now.
Jessica, you're up.
Yes. Two things. One is I 100% support the later start time. I think having previously been in a district where that happened for high schoolers, the effects are, I think the research is really clear about that. And the second thing is, as we get back to whenever this happens, something more normal, I hope we, our teachers have done such amazing work. And I want to make sure that, like, when a teacher needs improvement, that, I totally trust administrators to do all this, but that there's time built in to help those teachers who might need some help, that I'm sure, like, the evaluation process has probably been on the back burner right now, and as it should be, but that gets folded back in as things get back to normal.
Okay, I have John Bench, and then we got to segue to the next topic. John.
Just a quick question, Matt. I know you put together that information about the failure rates, which is good. Did you guys see any shifts in overall GPAs for students? Was there a downward swing? Did you notice in the first semester?
I don't really have that data. And I don't really want to muse on it. I can get that for the next meeting.
Okay. So, this is a topic that we're going to continue to revisit probably monthly as questions evolve. So discussion items, Matt, was there?
The one that I brought up, I want to do during other business, if that's okay.
Okay, gotcha. Yep. Okay, so then we're going to move on to the budget, which Matt sent out the link just before this meeting. There were two versions that we looked at before. One that contained a higher dollar amount for the trustees, one that contained a lower value dollar amount, and Matt is going to walk us through this.
Yes, thank you. So the budget is the same one that you saw back in January. I think that was only like 3 weeks ago. And with the one distinction is, as Ingrid said, we had two versions to look at last time, and now the trustees did approve the lower request. So to kind of highlight that again, the trustees had been pulling almost, about $750,000 from in different capital improvement and debt service projects. The art wing debt was paid off. And in the name of trying to bring the budget down right now, instead of keeping all that money as a capital improvement / debt service amount in the trustees, they reduced that request by $150,000, which approximately lines up with the reduction in tuition surcharge revenue based on not having that debt anymore. So that is if you're looking at the budget summary sheet, the numbers in green are the ones that correspond with the proposed budget that is up for approval by this board tonight. So the total amount, including the additional items, is $11,938,131, which is about 164,184 increase from budget to budget from last year, which is 1.39%. Which leads to an assessment increase of 435,951 and an assessment increase of 5.14%. Those are all the same numbers that I went over last time. You can kind of look at the trends over time. I've got the 2021 numbers there and the 2019, 2020 numbers. You can kind of see how things have come and gone. If you look at then by the increase by towns, again, you can look back over this year and the previous three, where things have kind of leveled out, and you can see year by year how things are going out. And you can see how the breakdown per $100,000 of assessed value goes town by town in that section. Nothing has changed in the additional items. Nothing has changed. We still have the amount in there for the asymptomatic testing. Hopefully we won't need it, but we likely will, at least at some point of the year next year. And I think it was a good move to move that out of the AOS budget into the individual budgets, because basically when it was in the AOS budget, it was counted as an increase there and in our local budgets as the assessments went out. So this is more reflective of what's actually happening. So I'm glad that happened. A couple areas of uncertainty. The biggest ones are health insurance. Right now, this budget is reflecting an 8% increase in health insurance. Hopefully it won't be that high. We will have, before the scheduled public budget vote, which is on April 7th, the first Wednesday in April, we will most likely, unless something goes wrong, we'll have at least our maximum increase. As Mark mentioned at the AOS validation vote last week, if we do get that number in a timely fashion and it is significantly lower, we can consider adjusting. Either if it's early enough, we can adjust the warrant, or we can adjust on the floor of the meeting if need be.
It'd be my March 25th, Matt.
So that does give us about a week and a half to make that adjustment if we need to. So there is a possibility we could make an adjustment downward. Another thing that's up in the air is as you all know, this is a negotiation year with the teacher contract. So right now we have an amount budgeted in there. We may know more about that by April. We may not. I don't know. Again, so those things are still kind of up in the air. And we do have that flexibility of making an adjustment on April 7th, should we need to, or should we be able to, either way. So, and I will take any questions at this point.
Matt, can I add, Chris, Ingrid, may I just add one quick thing?
Yep.
Just on the negotiated agreement line, just to remind everybody that that's inclusive, not just of our teachers, but all staff, our administrative support staff. And as Matt alluded to, we will know the amount in late March for the highest increase for any district, but we're hopeful to get the information too in early April for what the increase will be. Thank you.
Christy.
Again, this is kind of a dumb question. I'm just trying to understand how some of this works. For the gym floor, why is that not a trustee's budget issue? Why is that a facilities maintenance issue?
The trustees typically take on not maintenance, fixing, upkeep sort of things. It's more bigger capital improvement, and that's more just that it's basically, I mean, you probably could do it either way. If you were going to put a new set of bleachers in the gym or add, I don't know what else you do in the gym, but anyway, it's more when you're kind of maintaining and keeping up the things you already have. That's typically high school budget. It's a little blurry sometimes, though.
Just you asked a great question earlier. It's kind of like the solar panel thing. That was a new initiative, and the project that with storage and restrooms, new projects. So it's those types of projects that help keep the school moving forward, but that the trustees typically oversee. But there's no right or wrong in that area, really, as Matt described.
I think if you think of renovation, that's trustees, and this is just sanding down the floor, repainting it, and refinishing it. It's not really a renovation.
My question wasn't really about the money. I'm just trying to figure out who does what. And like I said, when I was explaining this to the person who was questioning me about the solar panels, and I didn't know any answers, and he said, I'm really disappointed as a board member that you don't know the answers. And I said, actually, it was not my job. And I was like explaining the trustee part of it. And I think a lot of people don't even know that those two separate entities exist and what they do. And so I'm just trying to be a little clearer. That's all.
If the gym floor was being replaced, that would probably fall under the trustees, but where it's being sanded and painted, it falls under the operating budget, which is this budget. When the boiler needs to get replaced, that falls under the trustees, but maintaining it and fixing it falls under operating. Jessica, your hand icon is up. Is that from before, or do you have a new question? Okay. You're muted.
Sorry about that. I forgot to lower my hand. I do not have a question.
That's okay. Any other questions on the budget? Okay, I'm assuming because this is under action item, we want to approve this evening. So is there somebody who would like to move approval of this budget, please?
This is Jessica. I move to approve the 20, whatever it is, budget.
21, 22?
Yes. 21, 22 budget.
In the amount of $11,938,000.
In the amount of $11,900,000. Oh my gosh, hold on. 11,900,000. Can you say that again, Ingrid? Sorry, a baby cried.
Yeah, that's all right. $11,938,131.
$11,938,100.
$131. Yes, we will
$131.
accept your motion, Jessica.
Sorry about
Sarah-
that.
That's all right.
Uh,
Is there a second?
I will second that.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Well, the only discussion would be Jessica's motion would include future stock in the company. So that's very nice.
All right, I will go through the roll call. Heather Jones,
Approve.
Todd Graham,
Approved.
Teresa King Leclerc,
approve,
Robin Sue Tapley,
Approve.
Marie Yarborough.
Oh my God, can you hear me? Approve. Sorry, I hit it 4 times. Work. I don't even have a baby to like distract me.
Christy LaSquadro,
Approve.
John Bench,
Approve.
Ingrid Kashmar, approved. Jessica Stewart
Approve.
and Carrie Hayes.
Approved.
Excellent. Okay, we have passage of the budget. Next, we have authorization for MDI high school board members to sign warrants digitally and electronically. Is that
So, Ingrid, may I?
Mark?
Yeah.
Yes.
So what this is, I don't want to suggest it's housekeeping, but right now the board currently approves all of your vouchers via DocuSign electronically. It doesn't preclude board members from coming in, signing things physically. Actually, prior to COVID, we found it very efficient. But now with COVID, it's been exceptionally efficient. Board members are aware that when we have to post the warrant for the high school and the AOS, we need signatures on that. And so we essentially what we did is we reached out to our attorney to see, could we, because historically it's always been done in person, could we in fact use an electronic process to authorize the signing of warrants? And the answer was yes, but it would require board action. So if the board chooses to adopt this, it can be revisited. It doesn't preclude signing things in person. It just allows for board members to certify and authorize the posting of these warrants. And if you have any questions, I believe Nancy's available as well.
Okay, so does anybody have any questions about this? No, okay. I believe that there was a motion attached to our agenda that if nobody has any questions, I would take a motion on this topic.
Ingrid, I wasn't able to open up that attachment. So if it's a specific motion that we have to follow, we're gonna need access to it. If it's not, I'm happy to make a motion.
You know, Ingrid, may I?
Yeah.
I just clicked on the link and I can't get access and I'm the superintendent, but
So-
I think it's fair to say that if the board wanted to entertain a motion to authorize the signing of warrants, the high school board, digitally or electronically, that would suffice.
So I printed out the motion that I'm assuming is the same for the AOS meeting. So you want me to read that and then you just say so moved?
Sounds good.
Makes sense? Okay. So I move that the warrants and notices of election shall each be signed by a majority of the school board and that such signatures may be made electronically or digitally by execution of counterparts or in person at the convenience of the members of the school board.
So move.
Thank you, Heather. Carrie seconds. Any discussion? Okay, I will go through the roll call. Heather Jones,
Approved.
Todd Graham,
Approved.
Teresa King Leclerc,
approve,
Robin Sue Tapley,
Approve.
Marie Yarborough,
Approve.
Christy LaSquadro,
Approve.
John Bench,
Approve.
Ingrid Kashmar, approve, Jessica Stewart,
Approve.
and Carrie Hayes.
Approved.
Okay, we have passage of that. Future agenda items. I think that we'll check in with Selena to see what we normally do. I'm sure we'll circle back on topics that have come up over the last couple months, unless anybody has something specific that they want to raise right now. Seeing none. Okay, date and time of the next meeting is Monday, March 8th, likely at 5 o'clock, and other business, Matt.
Now that we've just spent almost $12 million, I have good news. We, it's not that good, but we put out to bid, put out an RFP out for bids for our old plow truck, and we received a bid of $500 for the 2000 Chevy pickup from Andrew Koblinski. So we just, I find it to be a good bid, and the only piece that we need is we do need action by the board to approve a $500 bid for the sale of the 2000 Chevy pickup with plow to Andrew Koblinski.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve that, please?
So moved.
Okay, so I'm gonna give that to Jessica and then a second. Todd, would you like to second that?
Sure, I second.
You second. Okay. Any discussion? All right, we'll go through the roll call again. Heather Jones,
Approved.
Todd Graham,
Approved.
Teresa King Leclerc,
approve,
Robin Sue Tapley,
Approve.
Marie Yarborough,
Approve.
Christy LaSquadro,
Approve.
John Bench,
Approve.
Ingrid Kashmar, approve. Jessica Stewart,
Approve.
Carrie Hayes.
Approve.
Okay, excellent. Any other business? Christy?
Just one more, and I'm sure this is on Matt's radar anyway, but I'm assuming we're gonna have to have a discussion about graduation requirements again, and I don't know, maybe we should have it sooner than later, or maybe not. Maybe you've got it all under control, but I just thought I'd throw that out there.
I think as far as requirements go, I think you took action in the fall to give us the flexibility on that piece. I think just having an update on graduation is a good idea for future meetings. Students are, as you look at the data I showed earlier, the students are trending pretty well towards graduation. So things are going well. Obviously, we aren't doing the big senior exhibition project, but as we talked about in the fall, students are still doing wrap-up type of activities in their classes in both English and social studies. So anyway, I don't think we need to talk about requirements, but I do think just keeping graduation, both progress by the senior class and also just around how are we going to do graduation again in a different world this year is important things to talk about.
Okay, anything else? All right, I would take a motion to adjourn. Do we have to go through the roll call for that?
Move to adjourn.
Thank you, Heather.
Christy?
Do we have to go through the roll call for that?
The short answer is yes, Ingrid. I'm sorry.
Okay.
who seconded, who did the second?
Christy?
Christy. Christy, thank you. All right, Heather Jones,
Approved.
Todd Graham,
Approved.
Teresa King Leclerc,
Approve,
Robin Sue Tapley,
Approve.
Marie Yarborough,
Approve.
Christy LaSquadro,
Approve.
John Bench,
Approve.
Ingrid Kashmar, approve. Jessica Stewart.
Approve.
All right, Carrie Hayes.
Approve.
Okay, excellent. You have 4 minutes before our next meeting starts. Okay, see